So fundamentally, there are only two funnels you can run. It doesn't matter if your traffic is coming in through ads or organically with social posts. This is obviously the last piece on your business strategy chessboard, but also you have to understand that there are differences. The differences here are determined by your industry, the problem you're solving for your specific avatar, your pricing level, and the mechanism you're using to deliver that solution. So this means that you empirically pick your CRE. You have to study and try things. This is a cool infographic you can look at, and you see how this decision is made and what are the steps you go through. So you first determine your industry, the problem, avatar, pricing, and mechanism. Once that's done, you choose your CRE. Now, depending on what CRE you pick, the implications for your team are very different. With an inside sales CRE, you basically need salespeople, a booking system, a qualification process, because you're typically selling at a higher price point, where otherwise it rarely makes sense to have a low price point with an inside sales CRE. Very rare. In most cases, you need to have a high ticket. For the direct checkout CRE means you need a more like productized offer. You're reliant a lot more on your copywriting skills, and it's a bit more technically intensive, meaning it requires you to build a self-serve tech stack for your customers. And obviously, customers have to cost way less to acquire than with the inside sales CRE, because here, if your CAC is very high, you cannot sell at a very low price point. Otherwise, you're going to be losing money, bleeding money. These are a bunch of charts you can look at to visualize the differences between the two models. Your average deal size here and your CAC. Look at these charts to understand. You can pause the video. Now, there's a crucial distinction to be made. When we say there are only two funnels, we're talking about the core business model. This is the macro level strategic choice. Once you've made that choice, you then build a tactical funnel. The customer journey and all of its steps. It doesn't matter if it's a lead magnet, a webinar, what kind of email sequence, what kind of content you're running through that. The goal is to efficiently deliver people to that final conversion event. So you might have one strategy, but different tactics to achieve that strategy goal. Like a webinar or a VSL, you A/B test things with ads or different formats to figure out how you deliver your clients, your potential prospects, your potential clients to that conversion event in the most cost-effective, optimal way for your business. But listen here, the goal here is the choice between an inside sales and direct checkout model is about the sales process, not the final delivery. So again, don't confuse these things. It's about how you guide someone to become a customer. The best choice depends on your price point and the complexity of your offer and the need for qualification. You cannot have the need, like a client's need, in a bit more personalized help and sell to them through a direct checkout link. It's not going to be very optimal. You need a call to basically personalize and explain your offer and the solution, and to overcome the different objections, different sub-avatars of your main avatars might have. So obviously, this is only done after you determine the few first things we've talked about. It first starts with the niche, and usually the current approach treats niche definition like checking boxes on a shopping list. You determine where they are, what industry they are in, what the role decides, but this creates a lot of false precision. Again, this is an empirical game. Business is an empiricist game, this is not math. You can have someone who matches all these criteria perfectly, but still isn't a good customer because they lack the urgency or the budget authority here. They might be in a company where they are responsible for that department, but maybe they just don't have the ability to spend that much money. Their budget is limited. They cannot spend with you that much money, and so the sales cycle is going to be very long and all of that. And also the willingness of the potential prospect and client can be a problem here. So such a framework doesn't account for how painful is the problem, Is the solution a nice to have or a must have? What have they tried already? Like, what is their commitment level to actually solving the problem? Have they been trying to solve it? This is, again, it's tied to how painful it is. What happens if they don't solve it? Like, what are the consequences? The goal is to create urgency. And also, who else is it affected? Who else is affected by the problem if it's not solved? If it's a B2B situation and they are the ones responsible, how is that looking for them within the organization? How does that make them look? How does that impact their ability to rise up through the ranks? Also, if it's a more B2C offer or product, here is social pressure. How is that impacting the family of the person, the boyfriend or the girlfriend, the wife or the husband, the children, and all of that. So you have to understand this very, very much. So your niche defines the market segment where you will compete. It's about where you play. It's about marking boundaries, not having that crazy precision level that everybody is going for. So you have to set your boundaries first. What industry is it? Software company? Is it like a brick and mortar company? A blue collar company? Like where are they located? North America, Europe, or maybe you're selling to third world countries. Who knows? Depends on your business. Company size, revenue, employee count. What growth stage are they in? Like, are they making 6 figures, 7 figures, maybe 8 figures? Who knows? This you have to know. The decision maker you have to deal with in order to sell your stuff. And all of that needs to be studied. Here you can look at a bunch of examples to give you an idea, but here, this defines the container. That's the point. Where you'll find your customers, like what pond are you going to be fishing in? It has to be large enough to matter and small enough for you to monopolize initially, if you are at that early to like mid stage of your business journey. Once that's done, it's time to do your ICP selection, your ideal client profile within your niche. It describes who you serve best within the niche. It helps you focus resources on prospects most likely to convert and succeed. So qualification criteria here can be like the current situation. What are the specific, if it's like a company, what are the specific tools they're using right now? What are the metrics they're tracking, the challenges they face, so on and so forth, and how you can tap into that urgency and FOMO. Like, have they tried the different solutions? Is there a history in that industry with that problem and solutions not working very well? What is the reputation and all of that of all the people trying to solve that same problem you are trying to solve? And again, the consequences of inaction here should be emphasized to them. It helps you tap into like timing pressure and all of that to be able to really, really hit that urgency point, like make it hit home very well. And then there's also the buying capacity. There is no sense in targeting people that do not have the budget availability to spend the money with you. If they don't have the money, they can't buy even if they want to. And also they have to be able to decide, just like I explained earlier with the B2B situation. In the B2C situation, if they need to talk to the wife, for example, before they book a call, they must complete a form. And in the form, you must have questions detecting for that to figure out if they need somebody else with them on the call. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense to just lose you a lot of money. And usually, if they don't do that properly and they fill it in a way that they end up with you on the call without the other relevant person, usually the best thing, instead of trying to pressure the sale, is to schedule a follow-up call with the relevant person. And also, once that's done, they have to have the ability to basically implement or use your product. So if they can't implement if it's more of a consulting offer, they can implement what you tell them. There's no point. If they cannot use the product themselves, if it's a more of a DIY setup, then there's no point. All of these things you must account for. So yeah, and these are a bunch of examples you can read for the B2B situation if you've paid, like if you're selling to like SaaS companies, for example. Once that's done, you have to determine your unique mechanism to be able to differentiate yourself. So your USP here defines why your solution is the best. This is as simple as that. And it boils down to 3 things. You have to be able to clearly communicate the outcome you are delivering, Like, it must be relevant to some problem they have, a very tough problem, and you relieve them from it. And also, you have to figure out how you are better than other ones. So you have to communicate your how, and your how must be differentiating enough. So the emphasis here in delivering the solution, but how are you going to do it differently, specifically if you are in an industry that is pretty clouded and people have sort of a very bad reputation, especially like, for example, in the like marketing in like space. There's a lot of grifters and agencies that have a history of not delivering on their promises. So that's bad. Once that's done, you have to figure out now how to like prove it. If you're just starting out, you need to prove it through association. You use a proof by association model. It's very easy. And also, if you have you've had customers previously or clients, and they've had great results, put those testimonials and those case studies in front of your clients in the relevant like positioning and step within the journey through your funnel. Once that's done, like all of these things are picked, your niche, your ICP, USP, like your solution, your industry and everything, the problem you're solving, your mechanism. Now it's time to determine your conversion event. And this is how to decide which conversion event to run. If it's an inside sales one or a direct checkout model. This is decision framework with a pretty simple graph. Okay, I'm going to explain this for you. So no matter who you are, what you're selling, who you're selling it to, what's your industry, you're going to fall in one of these 4 quadrants. They all depend on 4 metrics: your price, the complexity of the offer, the trust, and the qualification needed. So if the trust and the qualification needed are very high, why the fuck did I switch to an Indian for all of a sudden? If the trust and qualification needed are very high, but your price point within that industry, like you've done your studying and you have, for example, a very scalable product and you have pretty low price points, and you need a high trust and qualification for your clients to be able to benefit and for you to be able to predictably sell, well, then that's a no-go zone. You have to reevaluate your positioning. Perhaps the way you've picked your ICP isn't right. Perhaps your USP isn't. Perhaps you must switch problems. That's not really the problem to go after with the way you're doing it, so on and so forth. And if your trust and qualification needed are low, but your price points and complexity of the offer, so meaning you do not need to personalize the explanation of the offer to each avatar, even though the delivery process is pretty much the same, then you run a direct checkout model, CRE. This means that you are in the quadrant 4. Now, if you are on the high ticket side, so your price is very high and the complexity of the offer is likely to be very high, so then if the trust and qualification needed are also high, you need to run a CRE, like an inside sales CRE, meaning you fall within the second quadrant here. The first quadrant. And if your price and complexity are very high and the trust and qualification needed is low, well, then you fall within the hybrid approach. You must try first, usually with the inside sales CRE, and then maybe you can figure out a way to do the objection handling like completely relying on your copywriting. So that's as simple as that. So these are a bunch of ways you can use to figure out which model you should run initially. You go through this, you run your points, you count your points, and you figure out whether or not you should run an inside sales CRE or a direct checkout model. So to know whether or not you pick an inside sales way, your price point has to be higher than $1,500. That's minimum. If you are in this situation, you score a 10 for yourself. If no, you just get a 0. Solution requires customization. For example, if it's a SaaS product, you need a demo and everything to get them on a call. That's not very custom, but you need a demo. So you count 2 points for yourself here. If the customer needs hand-holding to actually implement your solution, well, then you score an 8 for yourself. If the implementation is pretty complex and they need you along the way. If the sales cycles if long sales cycles are pretty acceptable within your industry or your niche, you score a 5. if like more than 30 days here. If more than 30 days is okay, well then score a 5. The total here, if it's above 20, then you need to build like an inside sales engine. To choose your direct checkout, now if your price point is below 1500, you score a 10. If value is immediately obvious once they purchase, meaning that they can do it themselves, you score an 8. If the implementation complexity is pretty low, they can use your product very safely and very easily, or implement your consulting advice very easily on their own, you score 7. If you have strong social proof, if case studies are available, you have a lot of them, extremely a lot of them, and all of the above things are valid, you score a 5. Then the total is if it's above 20, then you build a direct to checkout model. Here's the point. And if you find yourself stuck in the middle, well, again, you probably got yourself into that second quadrant we saw back up on that chart. So now you have to basically run a hybrid approach here. You first start with calls to study a bit more, to know a bit more your ideal prospects, and then you slowly but surely productize your offer if it's doable, and you rely a bit more increasingly on your copy and your case studies to basically have a direct checkout model a bit more. Obviously, you can also have some situations where people need to book calls. That's okay. Yeah, and this chart here shows you the timelines of the different situations. Typically, it can be faster for you or slower, depends on your situation. But yeah, hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, if you want this document, you'll likely find it in the description if I don't forget to put it there. And yeah, have a good one, friend.